Good afternoon. We would like to call this regular meeting of the City Plan Commission to order. Today is Tuesday, August 20th. It is 4:52 p.m. Start out with a roll call. Here. Dave Caldwell. Dave Caldwell here.
Charlotte Lipschitz.
Miguel Quesada. Shoyan Mandracar, DPD staff.
Bob Azar, DPD staff.
Sharon Garner, legal counsel.
And I am Michael Gazdaco, chair. We have minutes from July 16th that were circulated by Choyan last week. Hope you all had a chance to review them. If you have any edits, please say so now. If not, we'll accept a motion to approve the minutes as drafted. We have a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? The minutes are approved. Next up, we have a position that is currently vacant. As most of you know, Nicole has resigned from the City Plan Commission. So we need to elect a vice chair. And I would like to nominate Charlotte as the vice chair. In her short period of time on the commission, I think she's shown leadership and has a unique skill set that will benefit us going forward. Second. All right, all in favor of Charlotte as the vice chair, say aye. 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 You can't, you're allowed to vote for yourself. Just like a ballot box, you're allowed to vote for yourself. Any opposition? Any abstention? All right, congratulations and thank you. Director's report.
Okay, the only thing I wanted to mention today was that the comprehensive plan has been forwarded on to the city council. As you know, we had a discussion with the council president and the chair of the ordinance committee about the schedule going forward. And the plan that we've put in place is that the comprehensive plan will be heard by the ordinance committee starting on September 16th at 5:30. That's going to be in the city council chamber where the ordinance committee traditionally meets. There's a good chance that there will be more than one session of public hearing. We have blocked out September 30th for the second session. So for those in the public who are interested in testifying, you might want to save those dates, September 16th and September 30th.
Okay, thank you, Bob. No other business. We'll roll right into the first agenda item, which is a city council referral. It's referral number 3583. It's the amendment of an ordinance to allow for expansion of self-storage facilities. And the petitioner is Attorney John Garrahy.
Sure, commissioners, and just a quick introduction before the applicant is on. So this is a request to amend section 2001 of the zoning ordinance, which pertains to non-conforming uses. And the applicant wants to add subsection H, which would allow for self-storage facilities that were in operation before they were declared non-conforming to be allowed to expand, intensify, and relocate within the lots where they operate. So here's the applicants here and they can elaborate.
Attorney Garrahy.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, John Garrahy. I represent Patriot State Storage located at 204 Hartford Avenue. Couple of points about seeing me. We were here probably 2 years ago now, seeking a zone change for 204 Hartford Avenue to M1 to allow for the expansion of their self-storage facility in the back of the property. That zone change was made and our client was in the process of expanding. He also had additional space within the building at 204, which was an old manufacturing building, which he adaptively reused to a self-storage facility. rather than tearing that down. So we were here about 2 years ago. I was here about a year ago when the prohibition on self-storage facilities came up, and to my surprise, I didn't know it was coming. I came before you and said, please be careful, because when you prohibit the use, you then prohibit the expansion in any way of those facilities from doing very much at all. And I've run into this with several other clients who've had property changed, some without their knowledge, and essentially their property becomes non-conforming, and to either change it to another use or to expand it is next to impossible. In this case, I think the intention of the prohibition was, I don't want to put words in people's mouth, but I think there was a concern that a lot of open space was being used for self-storage and that housing could not be used in that facility. Many of those properties and self-storage was only allowed in the M1 zone. So it couldn't be used for residential uses anyway. In any event, it really threw a wrench, and particularly my client's plans to expand and develop his property as he intended to do. And I don't think that was the original intent. It was to prohibit the expansion of self-storage facilities on open space. And I don't think the intention was to kind of prevent them from expanding within their facility, and in my client's case, expanding to the rear of his facility. Now, I've seen some of the comments from the staff, and I want to go into them in a moment with respect to relocation or expansion in the back of the lot. But the intention of this is to, and again, I don't think the original intention of the prohibition was to prohibit people from expanding or operating within their facilities, allowing them to expand within the footprint of the building, which is the case here. My client, for example, has self-storage on the first floor. He wants to move it to the second floor. And under the present situation, he's not able to do that. When you get a non-conforming use, it becomes very, very restrictive with respect to expansion or intensification. So again, I don't think that was the intention. My client's here is going to talk to you about the other facilities. He's done some research and indicating that most of the other facilities that are built are fully built out. There's 5 or 6, I think, presently in the city of Providence, and they're fully built out. In any event, the intention of this, bringing this forward, is to allow for the expansion of that use within the existing facilities. Now, his facility also has some room in the back, which is an M1, which is a very difficult piece of property from an elevation point of view. It's hidden from neighborhoods and down into a gully, etc. And his intention was to expand units in the back of his facility off of Wayland Avenue, and you can't see him from the back. The relocation of the lot, which staff has recommended against, would prohibit him from doing that. So we would suggest that if you're interested in doing that, there's some comment from the staff that, well, it may not be consistent with the neighborhood. And I guess I would suggest to you that if it's in an M1 zone already, which allows for industrial uses, that it should be allowed to be relocated on the property, as long as it's not in a either C or an R zone. So that would be our recommendation and the reason why we're presenting it. As I indicated, my client, Mr. Nettleman, is here, Needleman is here, and he'll amplify, I think, what I talked about.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, do you have questions of the applicant?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we can hear the staff report.
Sure, thanks, commissioners.
Do you want to have your witness call? Absolutely.
If that's appropriate.
Absolutely, yes. I thought you were done. You were getting walked away. Okay.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
So, to piggyback on what John had mentioned, sorry, my name is Eric Nadelman. I am one of the owners, local owner and operator for the only currently self-storage facility in Providence that is owned by a local person in the state of Rhode Island. All the other 5 are owned by corporations, big REITs, big investors that don't necessarily have the same affinity towards the community that I do, providing the service that I do and work very hard to do for the constituents in our neighborhood. That being said, this project has been a vision that's happened over time. Unfortunately, I'm not a big corporation. I don't have shareholders. I've got myself and 2 other individuals who, used our lawnmower money to put this project together and had to do it over time due to financial constraints and proving out that the business would work. In that process, we listen to the community and figure out what it is that they need, right? Because we have to support them, they support us. It's a relationship that we all carry. We're not in this just to build a building to sell it 2 years later for them to sell it again over and over again. That's not our goal here. But what has happened over the last few years, as John had mentioned, we've made efforts to try to expand as we could. And during that time, now the zoning laws have changed, prohibiting us from doing just that. In the last 3 years, I think we can all agree too that the prices of everything have increased dramatically. I don't need to ask each person how much they've increased, but I can share with you just some top, important numbers for us. 300% was what our property taxes increased by. So that gives us the option to either increase our prices to our customer, and we service right now a pretty low income area. So doing that would be unsustainable. So in that process, we don't produce widgets. We can't just make more widgets. We have a limited number of spaces. And in order to try to meet those demands that have been imposed upon us by the city for taxes, we have to offer more places to rent. Another important number is 118. I've had 118 requests for drive-up storage for someone that doesn't have a garage, that lives in a 3-family house, that is a contractor in the community, for some type of space to be able to pull their vehicle up, to put bikes or tools, whatever it might be, kayaks, into that secured space for them. Right now, we can't service that with the current laws. And what we're really looking for is just to work, within the boundaries. We understand the need. I respect the need for more housing. If I was a house developer, I would be developing houses right now, but I'm in the storage business currently. And for us to continue in that business, especially as the only local owner and operator, we need some help from the city to be able to change or amend, because right now those laws from last year were passed only impact one facility. Now it impacts the ones that haven't entered the city, which we understand, but currently as it stands today, we are the only one that hasn't developed our entire lot. So the only person this hurts is us right now. So I'm just asking for your understanding of that and to work with you to be able to see kind of the forest through the trees. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have questions for either Attorney Gary or the individual who testified before us? Okay, thank you. Troyan, let's hear the staff report.
Sure, commissioners. And when this was before you, part of your recommendation was to recommend to the council that storage spaces not be prohibited, mainly because you did find that they had an adverse impact on health, safety, and welfare, and their land use was inefficient as it related to things like propagation of housing and other uses. So based on this, we do find that it would be reasonable to allow for intensification within an existing structure. However, we feel that additions to existing spaces, as well as relocation to different parts of a lot, could have a negative effect on the entire city just based on whatever activity could occur around storage spaces. So based on that, we would recommend that you recommend to the council that the language pertaining to exemption from restrictions on expansion and relocation should be struck. And we feel that would be appropriate to specify that the amendment only allow for expansion within an existing building.
Thank you, Troyan. This is a public meeting, so at this time, we would like to open it up to public comment. If there's anyone here in the physical audience, please come up. Is there anyone on the sign?
There's one that I believe was the.
Oh, okay. And if you're joining us virtually, please raise your virtual hand, which is the middle bottom section of your screen, or press *9 if you're calling in.
And we did send you a letter that was received earlier today.
Yes, we did. I should mention that. We've all received, and hopefully you've had a chance to read. I read it from an individual over on Harris Ave.
So nobody has raised their hand and nobody has signed up to speak on that.
Okay, with that, we will close the public comment portion of this agenda item. And just for the record, Noel joined us during this agenda item, and he'll abstain from this vote and pick up with agenda item number 2. All right, so discussion, deliberations, decision. I remember when this came before us, the prohibition of self-storage, and as Troyan indicated, I wasn't in favor of prohibiting. I don't like prohibiting uses blanket. The city council was pretty adamant, though, that they wanted to prohibit it for many more reasons than I think Attorney Garrahy indicated the intent was by the city council, whether I agree with it or not. Their intent was that it's mainly a predatory practice. They didn't want them proliferating and expanding anymore. They thought there was enough within the city limits, and they clearly wanted to prohibit it. Having said that, and unfortunately, this individual, I appreciate that he's local. We can't pick and choose based on local or national or international conglomerates. We need to make good land use policy based on any type of land use. So we can't say that this self-storage facility is good, but the others are not. So I definitely, at first I thought, well, I don't know that I even agree with expansion in existing buildings. However, I think that probably is the safest way to go. You're not expanding the footprint of the building, you're intensifying the use within an existing structure. It goes along with the speaker's intent of adaptive reuse. While it's not for housing, it's reusing and reutilizing an existing building. So I'm in support of the recommended by staff language, which would strike all of the expansion and relocation, but allow within the existing building envelope. Other opinions, thoughts?
I'm inclined to go the same way. I think our role here, and maybe this needs clarification, is to interpret what we're giving a recommendation, but the law is what exists.
The city council was pretty clear when they prohibited it. They didn't want any more self-storage. Full stop. And they're going to end up voting on it. So this is just a recommendation to the city council.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I believe that this was something that was introduced to the council by Councilman Vargas, who represents this area. So, there may not be complete unanimity on the council. I don't think there is.
As often happens.
As often happens. So, you don't have to agree with the council. You don't have to agree that their original decision was correct.
Right.
You should be sort of looking at this as it is. And one of the things that went into our recommendation was that we don't know all we don't know what land is available with other self-storage facilities for expansion. We don't know whether self-storage facilities might be able to acquire more land and expand into more land just based on it being contiguous and under common ownership. So we did have that concern that, if you allowed this, it would allow for an unpredictable proliferation of more square footage devoted to self-storage. Whereas in this particular case, I think there are probably a limited number of places that have excess square footage inside of an existing building that could be converted to self-storage. I don't know that this is the only one, but even if it isn't, what this means is that there won't be new square footage developed for self-storage. And I think that goes along with the intent of the prohibition. You're gonna hear another petition right after this that speaks to expansion of non-conforming uses in a slightly different way. As
Which could also apply to this.
it could apply to this. There is a little bit of wiggle room there, which I think is appropriate. Non-conforming uses that they're supposed to not expand, but we recognize that under certain circumstances, it might be appropriate for a little bit of flexibility there. And again, we'll talk about that with the next item.
Yep. Other commissioners, I tend to agree with Bob on this, and I was actually gonna bring up the next agenda item as sort of a way to skin the cat both ways. But I think I go back to being comfortable with the recommendation laid out in the staff report. We're all on the same page with that. Someone could make a motion.
I'll make a motion to, what's the right
Simply
language?
say to advise the council
To
as set
advise-
forth in the staff report.
To advise the council as said, in the staff report.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second. We'll go around and do a vote. Dave? Aye. Charlotte?
Aye.
Miguel?
Aye.
And I vote aye. All right, let's go on to agenda item number 2, which is another city council referral. It is referral number 3586, expansion of non-conforming uses.
Sure, Commissioners. So this also pertains to section 2001 of the zoning ordinance related to non-conforming uses. So the petitioner is proposing to amend the ordinance to allow a certain degree of expansion limited to 5% of the gross floor area of a non-conforming use. And this would be achieved through applying for a special use permit from the zoning board of review. And it would be granted subject to certain conditions, that the expansion is limited to 5% of the gross floor area, that the uses are on the property are brought into conformance with all applicable use standards in Article 12, and that the property be brought into conformance with the landscaping regulations of Article 15. And yeah, the applicant can tell us more.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Kelly Morris Salvatore. I'm here on behalf of Nick Keeman, who couldn't make it tonight. This is our client's petition for an amendment to the zoning ordinance along the same lines as, I guess the theme tonight is nonconformance. In this case, I think that this is an opportunity for the city because you're getting something. So for older developments that weren't developed properly and with the appropriate landscaping and the appropriate other use requirements, this is going to bring that development into conformance with a mere 5% expansion. So I think it's that simple. In the case of my client, it's a gas station. It's a car wash that's not going anywhere, and he wants to enclose it. And the staff has taken the position that that's going to expand the floor area because we're enclosing the entrance to the car wash. But you're gonna get a lot more landscaping. Anything that's required under the use of the performance standards is gonna come into play. And I think that's a win-win for the city. So for something like this, it's a little bit different and it actually might help the previous applicant.
Would agree. Commissioners, any questions for, Attorney Salvatore? Or Salvatore? Thank you.
Thank you.
Joanne, staff report.
Yeah, commissioners, and we concur with what the petitioner said. We do feel that an expansion of 5% is not significant, especially when you're getting landscaping and an updating of the use to offset any increases in the area of non-conforming uses. And so based on that, we would recommend that you make a positive recommendation to the council to approve the proposed amendment.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so anyone here in the physical room who cares to speak on this agenda item, please come forward, raise your hand. And anyone joining us virtually, please raise your virtual hand or press *9 if you're calling in. All right, and seeing none, we will close the public comment portion of this agenda item. This one, I agree with the staff report again. I agree with the applicant. I think that there should be a little wiggle room with non-conforming uses. Things change. This is not a downright like allow of expansion of the facility. This is allowing people to maybe modernize or update or make changes to come into times, but also come into conformance with certain standards that probably weren't in existence when these buildings were put in place. So I'm in complete support of this, and I agree with staff report.
Troy, can you give us an example of some of the stuff that would be in section 12 that they'd need to come into conformance with?
Yeah, so we do have use standards that pertain to the design of different types of uses. So if this was a use that was in operation prior to this ordinance, they would have to come into conformance with that. And you know, like an example would be, I'm just thinking, for example. Okay.
He's pulling up section 12.
Pulling it up.
All right.
You don't have to.
Okay.
Yeah, so for an example, for a car wash, we require car washes to be screened along interior side and rear lot lines with a solid fence or wall, a minimum of 6 feet tall, a shrub, a minimum of 3 feet in height, planted linearly every 3 feet on center along such fence or wall. The site shall be graded to drain away from adjoining properties. All structures shall be designed with windows that allow for visibility to all parts of the site. That is on top of the landscaping requirement.
Okay.
Otherwise, and I can, so the car wash that they're talking about on North Main Street, the idea is that there's a sort of open air part that has kind of a canopy. They simply want to enclose that and they want to make it a little bit wider. They claim it's for safety of their employees, and I think it might aid with retaining the water on site. But in addition to, you know, in exchange for enclosing that, they'll have to plant the requisite number of trees that are required along the street frontage, and then they're going to the extent that they don't have the required fence along portions, they may have that, but there's also a landscaping requirement in there as well. So it's gonna bring the use into conformance with whatever requirements we have for that particular use. It just so happens that car washes are allowed in some other zones, so we do have use standards.
Mhm.
If this is a use that's not allowed anywhere, then there won't be those use standards, but at least we'll get compliance with landscaping of the site, which is something that is routinely non-compliant. And, you know, whenever we have an opportunity to improve landscaping, we try to take advantage of that.
It helps Attorney Gary again, because prohibited use
No,
doesn't have
yeah.
standards.
We don't eliminate all felons.
Any other commissioners' comments? Are we ready for a vote? No?
Just a question on the.
Yes, sir.
This is, to allow 5% increase in the size of the floor space. If it was, another non-conforming use that they has filled the land to, setback standards and all that. How does this affect
So
setbacks?
you'd be able to, you'd still have to comply with setbacks. If you're non-compliant with setbacks, any addition would have to be compliant. But we wouldn't make you, let's say it's a, let's say it's a self-storage facility. And let's say that it's in an existing mill building that happens to be closer to a lot line than we would normally allow. We would allow for a 5% expansion within the property such that it doesn't exacerbate that setback. They couldn't go further into a setback.
Just for argument's sake, no specific.
So this comes in to, being because they've applied for a permit that close that space.
That's right, and they were denied that because it would, under the current rule, it's a prohibited expansion of a non-conforming use. In that particular car wash is in the C2 zone. Car washes are no longer, or car washes are not permitted in the C2 zone. That land happened to have been a different zoning that allowed car washes years ago.
And so, allowing the change, will allow the permit to go through and it won't have to be stopped automatically for another application.
No, it would allow them to apply for a special use permit.
That's right.
Still have
They'd have to go to the zoning board. And then they'd have to go to the zoning board and get the special use permit with findings that they meet all of these standards. And then following that, they'd have to get a building permit to do the work to enclose and to do all the required landscaping and fencing.
Because as you know now, you need clear and objective standards for a special use permit. And that's what these three are. For granting of the special use. No more discussion if anyone be.
I'll make a motion to make a positive recommendation to the city council to approve the proposed amendment per the staff report.
Okay. All right, we'll go around and do a vote. Noel? Dave? Aye. Charlotte?
Aye.
Miguel?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving right along to agenda item number 3, which is a major land development project, case number 24-021 MA 199 Oxford Street. The applicant is the city of Providence, is the Mary E. Fogarty School.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And this is a school that you may remember, they were here before us not too long ago. And they're back seeking preliminary plan approval. So as you recall, you had granted dimensional variance at the master plan stage. And they are back before us to present a preliminary plan, which will be more detailed. And they will be talking more about traffic, drainage, and other items that you see at this time. We should know that they are requesting a waiver from submission of state approvals at the preliminary plan stage as well. So based on that, the applicant can tell us more about the project.
When you get settled, feel free to take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. My name is Christopher Menahan with West Group Law. We're here tonight on behalf of the city of Providence. Shortly you'll see up on the screen, this project is located at 199 Oxford Street and 370 Sale Street in Lower South Providence. This is a PS zone, where public schools, are allowed by right. So we obtained master plan approval and a variance from the corner side yard setback, on May 21st. So tonight, seeking three things, the approval of, the preliminary plan, a waiver from submission of the state permits, at this stage, so that they, may be submitted at the permitting stage. And lastly, that final plan be delegated to, staff. So tonight, joined by Louis Torado, architecture, David D'Amico, civil engineering, Diane Soul, landscape architecture, and Derek Hug, of PAR on traffic. And with that, I will turn it over to David.
No, I can stand. I do better standing. If you don't mind my back. Good evening, board members. We'll just go through the existing conditions quickly for the committee's review. There's the existing building. You can kind of see it. That would be demolished. We are talking, this is hold on. You can't, that's blurred. Okay. This is lot 2 right here. There's 2 lots here. Lot 2. That's the main building. And this is lot 481. And there is the city park right here. We would be demolishing. Yeah, it's a little blurry there. There it is, Bob. Got it. Demolish the entire building in its entirety, all the parking lots, and essentially get it down to grade. And then we are looking to put the new structure in there. And we can go to the next site plan. So the dock area here is the actual building structure, pretty much in relatively the same footprint as the old. And it's approximately, the footprint there is approximately 56,000 square feet. We're on a lot that is 2.34 acres. And we have introduced a parking area here. The site does meet your parking regulations. We have estimated that there are 66 employees of the school, and divided by 3, it's 22. And we've provided 29 in this area, which also helps the community center that would be back in this corner here. We've also have incorporated, I believe it's 18 spots along, and I call them protected parking spots along Oxford Street. And I believe there's another 6 or 7 on Ocean Street, and those would be primarily Oxford Street would be for parent drop-off, and it adds a little bit more parking up in the community center. Along Sales would be the drop-off of the bus drop-off, and again, we've come into the site and we've provided a protected parking for the buses. And that would allow for free travel through Sales Street as it goes today. We have in this area right here will be all the playground area. They will use the existing park, the students. This area right here of the building is the service area, where I believe the cafeteria is back there. And we would have transformers and, dumpster, enclosures and the delivery area for the school. Front entrance is on, Oxford Street, and it would be, all paved and we would have all landscape here, which we will see further on. And I think that's it. We would be redoing all the sidewalks all the way around the perimeter of the project. And I think that's pretty much it. Now, getting into the nuts and bolts relative to the drainage. I'll just start with the utilities. The utilities will all come off Sale Street right in this area, which is primarily the power and the water, and the communications, and we have sewer connection here. One thing to note that Burnside Street used to go through many, over, I want to say 100 years ago, and they left the utilities in the street, just the water and, just the sewer and the drainage. So this is an area of the city that the drainage is separated from your sewer system. So that's a positive anywhere we go. So we will make provisions to protect the existing line. We've talked with the DPW. They have scoped the lines, and we are going to just make sure that our foundation has no impact to those. These are 11 to 12 feet down in this area, so we will be able to just strengthen our foundation to not impact. We will bridge it. Essentially, it's a bridge under the ground to not have an impact on the existing. And then what we'll do is we'll have all the roof drainage, collect internal drains, and then come out, and we will have a subsurface drainage system in the back. This will infiltrate water in the ground. We have a very good soil conditions here, pretty much sandy, gravelly soil, and the groundwater is really deep. So if I can remember correctly, it was 13, 14 feet down. So this will recharge. We'll add some recharge to the groundwater here. And any overflow will just connect into the existing drainage system there. So that handles most of the property here, along with this section in the back here. What we're going to do with the new parking lot is we're going to go with a more what we call kind of a sustainable type design, where we're going to go with the permeable pavement system. Something that the higher education, the Rhode Island higher education likes to see in these projects, and we're going to go with that. I've had great success with these systems. So that pretty much covers the way we're going to handle the drainage. So we really add a lot of capacity now to your drainage system because of this project. So in this area here, your system now that was collecting the drainage, this project added 50% capacity, because we now take the runoff from this area and infiltrate it into the ground kind of more naturally than just have it all overflow to the streets. So it's a real positive aspect of these designs when we come in here and we redo the whole site. And I think that's it. This is just our erosion control through the project. We will protect the surrounding streets from any erosion. And there are extensive, notes and requirements for this, for the contractor to follow. And then the rest are, just details, construction details that go along with the project.
I'm probably jumping the gun here, but,
Yeah.
NBC permit, I'm assuming you need, and that, are there any other state approvals that you're waiting on? Because you're asking for a waiver of state approvals?
Yeah, yes, we're going to need a RIPD's permit
Okay,
from DM, NBC permit
Mhm.
for the connection.
Yep.
And, DPW.
that's a city permit. We don't-
That is a city.
Okay.
permit. So
Okay.
just those two.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioners, do you have any other questions for the civil? All right, thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Good evening. When we presented here last time,
Can you please make sure to speak into the microphone? We're streaming online.
is that better?
The people at home need to be able to hear you. Thank you.
Our last presentation, when we presented the plan, included landscaping requirements for lot 2 and lot 481. So the plan was met the landscape requirements for that. Subsequent to that, we were asked to divide the lot and just include this area, lot 2, and this separately. So rerunning the calculations, we still have left all the trees that we've shown previously on lot 481, but that required us to actually add, I would say, a fair amount of vegetation and trees here. So we took a look at that and we bumped all the requirements up in this area, so we meet the landscape requirements of the city for lot 2 alone. So just briefly, I'll go through what that entails. Along Harriet Street, Sales Street, Ocean Street, and Oxford Street, we meet the requirements of street tree spacing and shrub requirements. And then also buffering requirements for parking here. The new calculations really bumped up the landscaping that we're proposing in the front of the building, making it much more green. The playground area, we will be designing a new pre-K playground area here. And then this area will become part of the play equipment for the existing park here. So the grades, all these grades K through 2, 3 through 5, and 6 through 8 will access and have use of all this area over here. Does anyone have any questions?
Commissioners, do you have any questions on the landscape?
I have a question on the use of the playground. Because they're fenced off, I don't know if they're fenced off now.
I don't think they would be fenced off. I'm not sure. We had fenced them off when we had to designate certain grades for the playground area, because they all have different requirements. So the previous plan did show them all fenced off.
I guess my question is about public access. During school hours and somewhere.
Hi, Louis Serrano Architects. Part of our plan development is to show conformance with the Rhode Island Department of Education standards. So some of this work is geared towards that. In reality, the pre-kindergarten playground and maybe the kindergarten playground would be fenced off. Those would be the only ones that have their own play equipment. The rest really is incorporated into the existing new park that is there. So we don't expect to be fences around the designation of each one of the grades.
Thank you, Louis.
So, a quick question, so the area, the 2 that you said are gonna be fenced off, that won't be open to the public then? Outside of our school hours?
I don't think that has been addressed or decided. We're at a very preliminary state of development, but we'll come back to you with that information as soon as we develop it with the school department.
And then the other thing,
I would think that for sure the kindergarten, the pre-kindergarten, because that's required to be fenced off.
to be fenced, okay, but it doesn't have to stay locked, so the public might still have access depending on if you decide to leave it locked.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is up to the policy of that community and the school department.
And then, so you're gonna, looking at the current design, you're gonna change the use of the, there's, it looks like a baseball field. So that's gonna be gone, right?
That's gone.
Oh, it's already.
It's a beautiful new park facility that they're
Yeah,
developing.
that was recently,
Oh,
it was updated.
Yeah, we met with the park department and they're incredibly proud of all the awards they have won for latest
There you go.
green design and all that,
I
yeah.
stand correct, I was looking at a.
Yeah, no,
aerial.
because yeah, and that was kind of like the site survey original, but yeah, no, it's I tell you, the school is very pleased to be adjoining this park facility because it really benefits the students as it does the community.
Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about the selection of the shrubs and the trees? Has any, I'm not quite sure what the state requires, but has any attention been paid to native species versus non-native?
Not entirely, but, this is still preliminary, so what we would do, if that's the way that we want to go, we would definitely do low drought native species. This is still in the preliminary stage.
I think that would be preferred.
Right.
We would appreciate that.
And that's all reviewed by the city forester.
City forester signs off on the plan, but if we make it a condition of approval, he would confirm that on the final plan as well as Fob and his team, when they approve the final plan.
And we won't be approved, well, they've requested that.
They requested that we delegate it to DPD staff. They can always come back, but
Well,
not really
I think under the law, it is delegated
Oh, it
to
is.
staff.
under the new
Final
law.
plan.
Yeah. Yeah, unless there's a condition. A change dramatic enough to bring it back.
Correct. That, yeah, if there's a major change, it would come back, but otherwise, final plan is a staff approval.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Derek Hugg. I'm a managing traffic engineer at Park Corporation in Lincoln. And the last time I was here, we talked about the existing conditions at the existing school, the existing bus circulation patterns, student circulation patterns, parent circulation patterns. And where we left off was where we had just received traffic count information. And we had originally focused on the 4 intersections surrounding the school along Harriet, Ocean, Sales, and Oxford. And this board asked us to expand those limits out to Eddy. So Eddy at Sales, Eddy at Oxford, and also out to Prairie Ave, again at Sales and Oxford. So we had our traffic counter go back out, do more traffic counts, and we issued, a few weeks ago, we issued our final traffic study for the entire project, including all 8 of those intersections, plus the driveways. And we found that we did analyses for the morning peak hour, the afternoon school dismissal peak hour, and also the afternoon commuter peak hour. And we found that every intersection we analyzed was level of service C or better, with the exception of
the northbound Eddy Street approach at Oxford Street. And that was only during the morning peak hour. So it's a level, I think under no build conditions, it was a level service D. And under build conditions, there's a level service E. But given this is an all-way stop here. Given the traffic volumes in that area, it doesn't appear that it would meet warrants for signalization or any kind of other mitigation to improve that level of service. But as I'm sure this board is well aware that if this approach starts to, the delay here starts to creep up, people will find other ways and they go on adjacent streets, they'll find other ways to get around. So we suspect that the delays that we are showing may not quite materialize as we anticipate. But that is pretty much the only update that I have. And so I'm open to questions.
Any questions for traffic?
So those studies were done.
The counts were done while school was in session. We got the 4 additional intersections we got right at the tail end of the school year.
Just out of curiosity, does the state review the traffic management plan as well? Or the traffic study?
I believe it's included in the mass, the ride.
In the ride
Submission, yeah. But RIDE will not review this because.
No, there's no state streets.
There's no state streets.
I was wondering, Department of Education, not RIDE. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's all we have. Thank you very much. If there are any more questions, we're certainly happy to answer.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, any last questions before we hear the staff report? All right. Take it away, Joanne.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Chair. And so the applicant has spoken about the building and site design and told you about the landscaping, drainage, and as well as the traffic. So based on that, we would like to talk about the waiver. The applicant has requested a waiver from submission of state approvals at the preliminary plan stage. And we would recommend that you grant that waiver. And this mostly pertains to the RIPD's permit. We recommend that you grant that waiver, finding that it would be in the interest of good planning practice. And we would recommend that the applicant submit those approvals at the permitting stage. And moving on from there, we do find that this is in conformance with the comprehensive plan, mainly in objective CS1 of the plan, which encourages development of public educational facilities in the city. This is a use that's permitted in the zone. As you previously found, the building will conform to the dimension and design regulations of the zone, as well as the parking and landscaping requirements. We don't foresee a negative environmental impact. This is a buildable lot, and street access will be provided from Oxford, Ocean, and Sales Streets. So we would like to ask you to take 2 votes. First, from waiver from submission of the state approvals. We recommend that you grant that waiver with the condition that the applicant submit the approvals at the permitting phase. And from there, we would recommend that you approve the preliminary plan subject to these conditions, that the landscaping plan be approved by the city forester, that the drainage plan be approved by the DPW, and finally, that final plan approval be delegated to DPD staff.
Thank you. With that, this is a public meeting, and we will now open up the public comment portion of this agenda item. Anyone here in the physical audience that would like to speak on this agenda item, please raise your hand. If you're joining us in the virtual world, please raise your virtual hand, or press *9 if you're calling in. No one in the physical room, and I see no one in the virtual room, so we will close the public comment portion of this agenda item. Thank you very much. We've heard the nuts and bolts of this one already, so this is pretty clear cut as far as I'm concerned. I was just going back and forth with Bob about the recommendation for waiver and whether it should come at final plan. Excuse me, can we silence cell phones in the room, please? Thank you. Whether this should come back, whether they should submit their state approvals at final plan phase or at permitting phase. And I tend to agree with now, having heard it. I'm okay with the permitting phase because if there are any changes from what's approved at final plan, they'll have to come back and that'll just hold up final plan approval. So that I'm perfectly fine with that. So we would be taking two votes on this tonight. When we get ready, the first would be the waiver of state approvals because we can't vote on the land development project unless we approve that. And then we would do one on the land development project. Commissioners, what are your thoughts on this application? Any discussion,
It's pretty clear, so,
agree.
I'll make a motion, to waive submission of the state approvals, to the permitting phase.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we'll go around and do a vote. Noel?
Aye.
Dave? Aye. Charlotte?
Aye.
Miguel?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Next would be a vote on the land development project. The preliminary plan.
So my only thought is, are we gonna ask about the trees, species, we can put that in at this point?
I think that would be reviewed by the city forester, but if you want to put a note that before we start.
I don't know what the city forester policies are, but
Yeah, I don't know that they need to be native trees. Obviously, this is a neighborhood amenity, a low drought. Native plantings would be preferred. So maybe we'd make a recommendation. Maybe we would vote to approve the preliminary plan contingent on the landscape, which would be reviewed by the city forester, including mostly native and low drought plantings. That fair? Does that work for you?
I mean. Yeah, I think part of the forester's reviews and see what these
I think you could make that recommendation.
I don't see that not.
Yeah, drought tolerant
And native plantings
as a preference.
as a preference, yeah.
Okay, so moved.
So moved. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
second.
All right, we'll go around with a vote. Noel?
Aye.
Dave? Aye. Charlotte?
Aye.
Miguel?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Best of luck and thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Moving right along, agenda item number 4. This is a minor subdivision with Unified Development Plan Review. It's a public hearing for case number 24-039 UDR. It's for 118 and 120 Hawkins Street.
All right, thanks, Mr. Chair. And a quick introduction before we hear from the applicant. So the applicant is requesting to subdivide a lot that is occupied by 2 buildings, each having 2 units. And this is a corner lot that fronts on Hawkins and Yorkshire Street. And the applicant is requesting to subdivide the lot, the applicant is requesting dimensional relief from a number of items. They include minimum lot area, lot width, the interior side setback, the rear setback, and relief from the maximum front yard impervious coverage requirement. And as you will see, the lot line that they're proposing to introduce passes between both buildings, which is where a lot of the setback relief arises from. So yeah, applicants here and they can tell you more.
Thank you. Dylan Conley on behalf of the applicant. I have with me, Peter Friedrichs as our, land use and planning expert this evening. Mr. Chairman, this is two buildings on the same parcel. It was bought by my client out of a receivership. So we don't really know the origin story of how the two buildings got to be on the same parcel. Really the philosophical theory behind it, but we do think it's important to the neighborhood as well. There's a really big difference between two-unit buildings on the same parcel and two separate duplexes in terms of who owns the property and who lives in the property. If we're able to divide the property, we think we're creating an owner-occupied scenario. We think that's a benefit for the neighborhood. We also think that the amount of people who can purchase a two-unit building is drastically different than the demand for a 4-unit building. 4-unit buildings tend to be investor rental properties. 2 units do have a much higher tendency to be owner occupied. With that, Mr. Chairman, we do have a full report. We have it broken out in a grid form. And I'd love any feedback on the grid form. This is something that we've been working on. If it's helpful, please let me know. If we're dropping the ball on something, please let me know. But Peter here, he's been sworn in. He's been recognized by an expert from the zoning board. We're requesting he be recognized as an expert for the purposes of the zoning variances which occur first. I know generally in planning section, we don't accept experts, but
this is zoning, so yes. Do you have his CV or his resume?
we do have some of his history attached in the, I believe it's submitted electronically. I don't know if do I have a copy of the CV?
I believe I was recognized as an expert with this commission, I think it was 2 meetings ago for the Ware Court.
Yeah. All right, having accepted you as an expert previously, we will accept you again this evening. Congratulations, you're now an expert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And with that, I would like to refer the board to Appendix A and of the memo that was just handed out. It looks as our letterhead, and then Appendix A starts a few pages back. And what this is the applicable standards. Oh, no, actually, we need to do zoning first, so let's be. Appendix B, Mr. Chairman, a few pages deeper, and what you'll see in the grid, and this is Peter's report, is the specific identification of the hardship and the relief being requested, and then thereafter, each of the elements with the facts that substantiate the necessary elements for relief. And I will have Peter move through it, but if there are questions or concerns, I want to invite everyone to jump in, and we're happy to dialogue as we go through the elements.
Proceed. Yeah, you probably need to swear in Peter.
Raise your hand, please. Do solemnly swear the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please state and spell your full name.
Peter Friedrichs, first name Peter, last name Friedrichs.
Just bring that microphone closer to the computer.
You got it.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna try and breeze through this as quick as I can, but if there's anything that the commission wants me to focus on, I'm happy to do that. Page 2 here has a list of the 9 requested variances. Most of them are not significant. And if you have looked at the site plan or are familiar with the site plan, it really just boils down to the layout of the lot. It's a corner lot. And in order to get the required off-street parking for the lot that will no longer be a corner lot, it just requires that that lot is bigger. And that's with minimal changes to the existing parking. So if you look at variances 1 and 2 here, they're pretty close to the requirements. Variance 3 and 7 is one of the primary issues. That's where the 2 houses that are on the lot, they're not changing. They're pretty close to each other. There's some commentary about that in the staff report as well, so we're happy to talk more about that. And then the houses are quite close to the street, and there's a lot of impervious surfaces there. As part of this application, the applicant will remove impervious surface elsewhere on the property, but made the most sense to keep what's there in the limited front area. A lot of the lot is above the street grade, so there's retention surfaces that are needed to drain the lot out towards the rear. Again, I spoke about the shape of the property and the requirement for the corner lot and the new lot 1 that will wrap around that. So the variance for number 5 there is pretty significant. 6 is pretty close to the requirement. And jumping on to the next page, the minimum rear setback is quite small, and again, that's to meet the required off-street parking requirements for lot 1. I mentioned the impervious surface area, again, because of the site conditions on lot 2, you see that in the rear yard. Turning next to page 4, looking at the hardship. So if you're familiar with this part of the city, the northern part of the city, I played a lot of recreational soccer at the school for the deaf, so that's how I know this area. Kind of typical Providence, 50 by 100-foot lots, a lot of gable-ended multifamilies. And there's, as you see in a city that predates zoning, there's some odd platting. You see that here. Hawkins Street is a collector street, carries traffic between Branch Ave and Admiral Street over Route 146. And again, the conditions are just that at some point, somehow, two families were located on this lot. It's gone through receivership, and the applicant is now trying to create a situation that's more in line with the city's goals. So there's no physical or economic disability. The applicant is present if you want to ask me any questions.
Try to go back and forth.
Sorry.
Thank you.
The applicant is present if there are any specific questions for the applicant. As laid out in Peter's report, we have all the details on all of the elements and standards for the subdivision if the zoning relief is granted. Mr. Chairman, we don't really want to belabor the point. We think it meets all of the standards. It is supported by the recommendation. We're happy to answer questions.
Do you want to go through the hardship standards just quickly, high level, so that
Sure.
we get them on the record?
So Mr. Conley mentioned that there's no physical or economic disability of the applicant. Again, this property has gone through receivership, so the applicant has no involvement in the construction of the two-family dwellings. I talked a little bit about the general character of the surrounding area. These variances will not change that character. There's a fair amount of multifamily properties, a lot of two families. Some of the lots are undersized. This is one of those instances. There's no construction, nothing changing beyond the removal of some impervious surfaces that have been requested by city staff. The approval of the variances will not impair the intent or purpose of the zoning ordinance. It will ease owner occupancy, promoting a balance of housing choices. We followed all staff directives in this application. Granting the requested variance will not impair the intent or purpose of the comprehensive plan. The future land use map has designated this area medium density residential. The proposed lot sizes are similar to characterized lots within that future land use map designation. There are specific sections of the comprehensive plan that refer to this type of application. One of those is discusses the general challenge of planning within a changing housing market. And since the comprehensive plan was adopted 10 years ago, we've seen how that's changed. And then looking at page 6 here of the appendix B.
You can go on to 7.
Sorry.
I think you've demonstrated that one. Now you can go on
all
to
right.
page 7, the last one.
Okay. The hardship suffered by the owner if the dimensional variance is not granted amounts to more than a mere inconvenience. That is, that relief sought is minimal to a reasonable enjoyment of the permitted use to which the property is supposed to be devoted. Again, the property is currently non-conforming. There are two families on the property. The subdivision and granting the requested variances will make the property conforming. Without the variances, as was mentioned, the subject property is more likely to have investor owner instead of being owner occupied.
Thank you.
That concludes our presentation, Mr. Chairman, except to the extent that there are any questions we could be asked.
Did you want to go through the minor subdivision next? Just
Absolutely.
quick overview and. I mean, I think if you have nothing further, it's fine. We do address it in the staff report, but just want to see if you want to put anything on the record for that. Most of it was under the.
Don't have anything necessary to introduce about.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have anything for the applicant? All right, let's hear the staff report and then we will open up public comment.
Sure, thanks, Mr. Chair. So we'll first start with the criteria for variance. We do find that this hardship is related to the unique character of the property, it being a corner lot with two structures on it, as well as part of the lot being at a higher grade than the adjoining street. As discussed, this hardship is not the result of any prior action of the applicant. The applicant did speak to the neighborhood's character, and we don't feel that granting the variance will alter the character of the surrounding area. And we do feel that this would be more than a mere inconvenience should you deny the variance, as it would prevent subdivision of the lot and separation of both buildings. So based on that, we recommend that you grant the dimensional variance. The dimensional variances for minimum lot size, minimum lot width, rear yard setback, and front and rear yard impervious coverage requirements. They exceed those as listed in the staff report. And moving on to the minor subdivision, again, we feel that this subdivision would be consistent with the comprehensive plan, given that the land use characteristics are intended to create the type of lots that would result from this subdivision. Subject to you granting relief, this will conform with the zoning ordinance. We should note that the applicant is required to remove a certain amount of impervious coverage from the lot as depicted on their submitted plan, and they intend to do that by the final plan stage. We don't foresee a negative environmental impact. And as has been discussed, part of the reason for why they have a narrow side yard setback is because the lot line will be passing between both buildings. And we believe that this may trigger issues of compliance with the building code as it relates to the fire rating of walls. And so we feel that the applicant should remedy this condition either by changing the configuration of the walls or receiving relief from the Building Board of Review. And finally, adequate street access is provided from Hawkins and Yorkshire Streets. So based on that, we recommend that you approve the minor subdivision having granted the requested relief subject to these conditions, that the applicant shall remove the impervious surfaces depicted on the plan to bring it into conformance with the ordinance. They shall remedy any building code issues related to the side yard setback, the placement of the lot line, either through improving the fire rating of the walls or obtaining relief from the Building Board of Review. And finally, we ask that final plan approval be delegated to DPD staff.
Thank you, Choyan. With that, we will open the public comment portion of this agenda item. If you are here in the room and you'd like to speak on this item, please raise your hand. If you're on the virtual world joining us, please raise your virtual hand or press *9. So can go, Mr. Delgary.
I just had a quick question. Why, as the presentation was being made, can't the pages of the presentation be projected on the screen?
That's a fair point. We didn't do that, but we could and we should.
Thank you. Mr. Delgarian asked, because he didn't have the microphone, just for anyone at home, asked why, the pages couldn't have been projected, that we were reviewing on the screen during the application, and, agreed that that could happen and should. Right, anyone else in the physical or virtual rooms? Seeing none, we will close the public comment portion of this agenda item. After you get through the technical aspects and the nitty gritty, it seems pretty straightforward. A subdivision to create two different lots with two separate structures on it. With one separate structure on each lot, excuse me.
Because this is an R3 zone, they, with two separate lots, they would be able to expand each building to 3 units, I'm assuming. But they would have to abide by the fire, like all the building code requirements.
That's correct.
Okay.
And they would have to increase their, the amount of parking.
Right.
And so forth. So it's possible. Unless you don't want that to happen, you could make that a condition. I think under the circumstances, it's it's possible it could happen. They could also add an ADU under the pending ordinance.
Yeah, I don't think I'm not too concerned about either scenario. I mean, that if they were to intensify the use, to bring it into a 3-family, bring more housing units online, and they're probably having to do a whole bunch of code upgrades at the same time. So it's not the worst thing in the world. Not what the applicant's asking for today, but yeah, it's a possibility. On this one, when we just for mechanical aspects of this, we are going to have to vote on the dimensional variances first and then the minor subdivision. So we'll have to, state based on the testimony, findings, and the submitted reports that we would vote to grant the dimensional variances, and then we'd vote on the minor subdivision.
So I know we don't enforce any of the fire code right there, but the easement requirements. Well, the space between the houses looks like it's used for access to the house.
It is, yeah.
Smaller.
Well, and that's like the recommendation that goes on to the minor subdivision, which the recommendation is pretty clear that if we carry this recommendation through to the vote, after we vote on the zoning relief, that the application shall remedy any building code issues related to the side yard setback, that's that line you're discussing, either through improving the fire rating of the walls or obtaining relief from the building board of review. So that's how they'd have to find out how to do it. We just make them bring it into conformance, whether they do it physically or through relief that we wouldn't be able to grant.
And then the other one is the access. Well, there's an easement at the back of the smaller one. By looking at
the common area easement.
Yeah. Well, because of that sunken driveway, or the driveway with the wall.
Yeah, because the driveway is technically on that lot area, lot 1, the larger one, and there's no access to the house from there, exactly.
Well, they could build an access to the house.
Well, if you would like, you could put as a condition of approval that they submit an easement agreement with the final plan.
You submit an easement agreement with, you can submit an easement agreement, you just might not be able to record it until they're 2 different owners.
Yes, and what I've done in the past is submitted them as a condition of the zoning, because then that sticks with the real estate. The hatched common area easement, it honestly looks much more awkward on paper than it does in real life. When in real life, it kind of leaps out at you. It's a brick walkway that manages both sides.
Right. Well, that makes sense. Well, I mean, either one, the minor subdivision would get recorded on the deed as well, so either way, we could require, probably cleaner in the minor subdivision to add it in as a third and make the fourth final plan. So third would be, easement agreement to be submitted with final plan. All right. So the dimensional relief, we can take one vote on the dimensional relief request, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I didn't want to have to go through and list every single one. So if someone was so inclined, you could make a motion to, ready? You could make a motion to approve the requested relief from the minimum lot size, minimum lot width, rear yard setback, front yard, and rear yard impervious coverage requirements, based on the testimonies of this evening and the submitted materials and documentation.
So moved.
All right, we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we'll go around and do a vote. Noel?
Aye.
Dave? Aye. Charlotte?
Aye.
Miguel?
Aye.
And I vote aye. And then the next would be, someone could make a motion to approve the minor subdivision. And follow, subject to the following conditions, that the applicant shall remove the impervious servers depicted on the plan and document the changes prior to final plan approval. Number two, the applicant shall remedy any building code issues related to the side yard setback, either through improving the fire rating of the walls or obtaining relief from the building board of review. Three, easement agreements are to be submitted with the final plan. And four, final plan approval should be delegated to DPD staff.
So moved.
Second. All right, we'll go around. Noel?
Okay.
Dave? Aye. Charlotte?
Aye.
Miguel?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Moving on to agenda item number 5. Thank you. Another minor subdivision, unified development plan review, public hearing for case number 24-043 UDR for 349 Wayland Avenue.
Sure, thanks, Mr. Chair. And this case also involves a subdivision of a lot with 2 buildings on a lot. So this consists of a house and the lot fronts on Wayland Ave as well as Lloyd Ave. And the house fronts on Wayland Ave with a carriage house beside it. And the applicant is proposing to subdivide the lot, keeping the carriage house and the main house on separate lots with the intention of developing the carriage house as a single family residence with an attached garage. Now, in doing so, in subdividing the lot as proposed, the applicant is before you requesting relief from the side yard setback requirement, the rear yard setback requirement for the structures on both houses. And part of it involves reconfiguration of the carriage house, where what was initially considered the side yard will now be considered the rear yard. So the applicants here, they can explain what they are asking for based on the subdivision.
And I just have, to supplement what Choyan said, your house fronting on Wayland Avenue currently has a rear yard to the east going down Lloyd Avenue. With a new lot line being introduced, this house will still have a front yard on Wayland Avenue, but a shallow rear yard. And then the existing carriage house, which is currently an accessory structure, becomes a principal structure because they're going to turn that into a single family house. And what was a side yard for the whole development becomes the rear yard of the carriage house because it now will have frontage only on Lloyd Avenue. So you have to think about this subdivision as kind of reorienting the side and rear yards for the carriage house. There's something additional here, which is that they intend to build a detached garage that will go with the existing single-family house, and an attached garage which will go with the carriage house. The attached garage is going to need some zoning relief. Up until a couple of months ago, the subdivision with the relief required to effectuate the subdivision would still come in front of you, but the new construction on a single family house lot is not a land development project, so that wouldn't come in front of you. That would have gone to the zoning board. The General Assembly has clarified some of the language in these massive changes they made in state law. They've clarified the language such that we now have, our legal counsel and applicant's legal counsel have conferred, and we now agree that the development on the site can also be and has to also be heard by the planning board under UDR. So the General Assembly has just increased your workload by not only requiring you to grant or to consider variances in conjunction with subdivisions and land development projects, but now any development related to a subdivision that requires zoning relief comes to you as well.
Well, I mean, the General Assembly's increasing our workload, but we're trying to decrease it a little bit by
Yes,
having more robust land use allowed within the city limits. So
that's right.
it's a trade-off. Attorney Tykes.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Andrew Tights, T as in Thomas, EITZ. I'm an attorney with offices at 2 William Street in Providence. And I'm here tonight, representing Lofty Ambitions LLC, which is actually Jill Sutton with me, and you'll be hearing from her and a couple of other witnesses. I'm gonna take a few minutes to talk about the background too. I'll try not to, since Bob and Troyan have told you a lot about it, I won't try to have too much. I do want to point out that this is a 15,000 square foot lot. So theoretically, both of these structures could be demolished. It's not in the historic district. Both of these structures could be demolished, and then you'd have 3 conforming 5,000 square foot lots on the property. But that's not our goal. Our goal is to preserve both that magnificent house that faces Wayland and also a pretty magnificent, unusually magnificent carriage house. It's not your usual, just a barn. It's got beautiful windows and so forth, and beautiful design features that we're trying to preserve. So basically, we're just asking you to draw the lot lines, and then we'll also talk about the garages there, where the relief we think is minor. I want to give you a little bit about the history of the property because I think it's interesting legally. Now, I don't know, do you want me, Troyan, you said, do you want me to, I'm logged in. Do you want to promote me and I can share the screen?
We can do that.
Okay, join as panelist.
Recording in progress.
All right.
Yeah, just make sure you're, you want to mute your microphone.
Yep. Yep, okay. My iPad is muted. And okay, now share screen. Start broadcast. We'll get to it today. Okay, now I'm just gonna get to the ducks to go. Okay. And it is more or less working. I just got to allow for the time lag. So back in 1977, the owners of this property went to the zoning board and requested a variance to convert the carriage house
to a residence. Now, we believe that the carriage house actually was occupied previously, and you'll hear testimony from Jill, she and her people have been digging through it a lot. There's gas lines there, there was heat and electricity and sewer lines, there's the remnants of a bathroom there. We believe it was an occupied dwelling anyway. Because in fact, that was one of our thoughts, that was non-conforming, it was already a legal dwelling. That was our thing. However, in 1977, they went to the zoning board. Now, the good news is the zoning board in 1977 granted the variance to convert this carriage house to a single family dwelling, effectively what we're doing now. It would have just been 2 on 1 lot. However, the owner did not carry forward with it. You recall that language at the bottom that says you have to do it within 6 months or it's gone. So they didn't. This variance was never activated. However, because they went and got the variance, they effectively waived their right for that non-conforming aspect of the property. So that's why we're here from a strict legal basis, but I think it's good for you to know that even 50 years ago, the zoning board thought this was a good idea. So now, what we are talking about doing is just, making a lot of, it seems like a lot, but basically small dimensional changes, and other than one for the garage, they're basically all due just to the subdivision and lot line. If I could submit as an exhibit, we've got some details kind of explaining, it might make it easier for you to see, and I can also put it up on the screen. Pretty sure I have enough for everybody to pass it around. I don't know if you want to give that a exhibit A or exhibit 1 or.
Dealer's choice. Exhibit A.
Exhibit A, okay. And let me call it up on the screen here. Okay, this is going to be some of the. There we go. So, this is basically trying to give you a highlight of the details of the relief that we're requesting. And this first page, parcel A is the big house facing Wayland Avenue. This is where, we've got a couple of interior side lot lines that we're asking relief from. And it should be 6 feet. And as you can see, we've got 1.5 foot at one spot. And we've got only 4.5 feet at another spot, or 4.3 feet. So, those are the existing setbacks between the two buildings. We're not moving any of the buildings. That's what's there today. So we're asking for that relief. Second page is the existing carriage house. And this is, as Bob was explaining, what was a side yard of an accessory structure, and accessory structures could be built right up to the lot line even. And this, of course, was like 1911 before there was any zoning anyway. But now that's a rear yard. So theoretically, that's supposed to be a 30-foot yard. But we've only got 2.2 feet, 2.4 feet. And that's we've actually got more from the building. And as you can see, the building is set back further on the right as you're looking at the picture. But the closest point where the roof overhang is to the property line is 2.4 feet. That's what we're asking relief from, is our rear yard. I'm going to skip over this next one and go to the 4th page next, because this is the other side of the building. Again, this is what was a rear yard, which didn't need any setback as an accessory structure. And again, requires a large setback, and instead, it's now a side yard, so it only needs 6 feet. It doesn't need 30 feet. But again, we're asking for our existing 2.39 feet. That's our existing distance. Again, that's the closest point, the roof overhang. The building itself is a little bit behind that. Then I'm going to go back to that 3rd page.
Because this is where things get a little confusing and ties in with, Mr. Azar's remarks. So, when we filed this application to get on the agenda timely, it was still the policy of the city that we would not be able to apply for the variance relief on the garage at the same time. So we proposed a plan that shows the attached garage 6 feet off of the property line. That's the new property line. This is the one on your right there, option A, compliant with setback. It shows, as I said, 6 feet from the property line, that proposed attached garage. We're making a jog, the carriage house. Our original plans and the plans that we would actually like to have approved by you, this option B setback relief, basically we line up the attached garage with the side of the existing carriage house. And you'll hear more testimony, but we think that architecturally that works better. It actually hides more of that attached garage behind the garage for parcel A. It makes more of the beautiful front side of the carriage house available to the street. So we're also asking for that relief there. And you'll hear more about the hardship is relating to those architectural elements, the use of the property, but we're asking for that additional distance there. Instead of being 6 feet away, we would only be 4.5 feet, or 4.4 feet technically, I think is what we're proposing. Okay. So that's the relief that we're seeking. I do want to just note one thing, because this is the end of my arguments, except at the end, I would just like to speak to the conditions of decision before you vote on that. So, and I guess I might want to respond if there are objectors. So I'm going to go on and call as my first witness, Jill Sutton. So can you give your name and address for the record?
Sure.
Let's have the stenographer swear you in. This is a zoning matter.
Raise your right hand, please. Do solemnly swear the testimony about to give this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I swear.
And spell your name, please.
Jill, Jill, last name Sutton, S as in Sam, Utton.
Thank you.
Sure. So good evening, everybody. My name is Jill Sutton. The president and owner of Lofty Ambitions. Lofty is the owner and developer of the Wayland Lloyd site that we're discussing this evening. As the principal of Lofty, I'm also a general contractor in the state of Rhode Island. So my and Lofty's specialty is the renovation of historic homes, so homes that were built more than 100 years ago. And immediately prior to this project, Lofty restored a 4-story historic building by famed local architect Prescott Clark on Clarendon Avenue. Similar to the houses in the Wayland site, the Clark house was in a substantial state of disrepair when we began the project. And we carefully renovated all 4 floors. That concluded at the end of 2023. And then Lofty purchased the Wayland site in early 2024. The Wayland house and carriage house were built in approximately 1911 by George Hanley. Mr. Hanley was an executive with the Providence Brewing Company, which interestingly was originally founded in 1892. And you can still get through the website the Legacy Hanley Private Beer Club membership, which is pretty interesting after all this time. As you might know, the subject corner lot is a high-profile arterial pedestrian and vehicular corridor. It connects Blackstone Boulevard to Brown University from the east to the west along Lloyd and the east side residential area to the bustling Wayland Square from the north to the south. So as a result, this corner truly is a guidepost. It firmly establishes the nature and tone of the surrounding residential community, which is why we're so here interested in preserving sort of the nature and character of these historic homes. I'm on site during the renovation of the main house, which commenced in the spring.
Unsolicited community feedback has been pretty positive regarding the main house renovations. I've also spoken to the abutting property owners who are most closely impacted by the renovations. They've indicated that they would also like to see and are supportive of the plans that the carriage house be maintained. Aside from the new attached garage, we are not expanding the footprint of the carriage house or the main house for that matter, but rather sort of respecting the size and character of the original buildings. The carriage house itself is large. It's 2,700 square feet. Our plan has 4 sizable bedrooms and 3.5 baths as completed. So as you would have seen in the plans for the main house and the carriage house, they've been designed and will be built to preserve the historic nature, but also suitable for modern family living. As Andy indicated, we've sort of carefully located the lot lines and established garages so that both homes look and feel like separate but complementary and additive residences to the neighborhood. They'll each also have fences, walkways, detailed landscape plans that sort of further enhance and define the character and beauty of this important corner of Providence. One thing we were not able to do is to move either of the existing structures. These structures have been happily cohabitating peacefully, as far as we can tell, with each other and their surrounding neighbors and outbuildings for over 113 years. The complaint from the neighbors when we arrived to start the renovations was not the proximity of the carriage house to them, but the fact that it had not been appropriately maintained over the years. So as Andy indicated, the carriage house has a lot of evidence that it was inhabited over the years. As I mentioned, it's a large 2-story structure. It had fully finished interior pine paneling, a space for a bathroom, cabinetry, multiple sewer lines, rugs. It did indeed seem to be a large established residence. Given expectant fire codes and the importance of safety, Lofty has an impeccable safety record for our job sites. We take safety very seriously during both the build process and projects that are completed. With the advice of a reputable consultant, we have considered the building code and fire safety in connection with the design and renovation of both homes. For the main house, we've closed all openings on walls adjacent to the carriage house. Windows and soffit vents were eliminated. Closed cell foam and metal roof will be added, as well as fire retardant coatings on the walls and the eaves of the main house closest to the carriage house. The carriage house is brick and masonry, and the new attached garage will be as well, without an opening facing onto the main house. For the carriage house as well, the closest window to the main house, exterior walls, still exceeds 6 feet in distance. The other windows face into open yards or detached, uninhabited, abutting garages. For me and for Lofty, this is our most significant renovation project to date, and our primary focus until we have the main house finished and the carriage house well underway. I feel both privileged as well as the relative weight of renovating these homes to the quality and finish standards that these buildings in their original state clearly would have reflected and today deserve. For the neighboring community as well, it's important that we restore these homes to be the guideposts as the beautiful historic home renovations that are truly additive to the East Side's Wayland Lloyd corridor. Thank you for your time.
I'm just gonna follow up with a couple of questions. Can you talk about the importance of having these 2 garages that you're adding these garages here? And why are you doing that?
Sure. So, as for the garages, I think it's very important for modern living spaces to have outbuildings and locations for not only cars, but bikes, tools, lawn implements, anything like that, that's just not suitable to store inside a home. You know, and I think people would expect, especially with homes of this stature, as well, as size and scope, to have garages. And garages are, as I'm sure you all would appreciate, very, very common, in the neighborhood, in the surrounding neighborhood, both detached and attached. In fact, we've tried to maintain sort of the line of sight with the setback from Lloyd for the new main house garage, which is detached, but will sort of maintain that porch and property building line along Lloyd. So it would be pretty expected. And we've also carried forward architectural details from the front of the house on Wayland to that garage on Lloyd.
In fact, I guess I got kicked off. So if you can like reappoint me, I can go to that set of the plans to show that at the time. And while you're doing that, I'm gonna also ask Jill to talk about, well, hold on. Okay.
Recording in progress.
Share. Screen. Start broadcast. Okay, so there you have, this is the view of the carriage house, but with the garage from parcel A is what you're looking at there. That's the front of that garage. I think you can see the columns and the detailing of the door and the shingles to try to fit it into the neighborhood. We don't have a, you know, now that we've got the walls and the side walls are concrete block for fire protection. We're gonna obviously have them fire rated, but it's not just a simple garage, even including the cupola on top. And then this is the view of, whoops, I'm sorry, it's actually, there it is. There are the two views together. So the upper view is what it's looking at. If the front garage weren't there, that's the garage, the attached garage, because the entrance to that is actually on the side. They'll come down the driveway and they'll go into it. And I wanted to just ask, Jill, if you would talk about, you've already reduced the size. Here's a plan that shows the two garages there. And we've already reduced, even though there are two cars shown there for the garage, for the carriage house, we've reduced that. It's really only 1.5 car garage. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, these garages are pretty modest, you know, in terms of what would be expected for a garage. So we tried to stay at or within a 20 by 20, but that would be small for purposes of, you know, large SUVs and those kinds of cars and storage. So likely they'll be used as a single car with some storage with it. But again, just we've tried to keep them small as possible and still very usable for purposes of the construction.
And while you're there, while we're there on the screen, I'm also gonna point out that the dining room is visible there, you can see. So this plan is our option B, which would have the zoning variance from this commission for that 1.4 feet. So we could have it line up with the side of the building. If you do not see fit to grant that, we would move that garage to the left as you're looking at the plan, which is gonna block the dining room frontage and the dining room windows there, if that were to happen. So,
Just a quick question on the size. Was that a city recommendation to make them 20 by 20 or?
No, you know, just in terms of us planning and sort of site use and, you know, not wanting to have the garages feel like they were too big in proportion to the lot size.
Okay. Just curious.
Yeah.
Thank you.
we do comply with zoning. The requirement for the parcel A garage has to be at least 18 feet from the property line. And we do comply with that requirement. So we're not asking for any relief on that. Now, Did you, have you engaged a code consultant, Peter Consoli, to talk about the fire, to research the fire protection issues with the buildings?
Yes, we did.
Okay, if I could submit this as an exhibit, this is a report, Mr. Casali is unfortunately, his daughter is getting married as we speak.
You said
or in 10
unfortunately?
minutes. Pardon me?
You said unfortunately?
No, well, unfortunately for us, he can't be here.
Oh, okay, all right.
Fortunately for
Got
him,
it, okay.
well, perhaps unfortunately for him, the cost of the wedding, I don't know, but he can't be here, but we do have, a brief report from him, and then I'm going to ask Ms. Sutton a few more questions about it, so if I could submit this as an exhibit, and if you leave me attached, I'll put it up on the screen as well. So I guess this would be exhibit B.
No, just, for our purposes, we'll accept this as exhibit B. And, if you want to just high level quickly go through it, because this is really gonna pertain more to, your building permits than it is to our decision or.
You've actually just taken the words out of my mouth. We don't think this is part of the jurisdiction of the commission. But it was something that staff inquired about, they were concerned about it, and we just wanted to let you know that we have done it. We've taken, we've got someone looking at it, we've done some things, including the weird jog in the property line, as it comes off between the two houses to give as much room as possible. And there's a doorway, you heard the testimony, there's a doorway that's gonna be closed off completely. So we have done that. It's basically just to let you know that we have taken those options.
We appreciate it, and it's more just like you saw in the last, agenda item. More just out of an abundance of caution. for us
That's
to
right,
list it in
and I
in
think
the
you already,
file.
in fact, I don't have to ask again, then you heard the testimony from Ms. Sutton about that they've eliminated the vents in the roof. They're putting metal on the
Yes.
paint and so forth, so then that's fine for the record, then.
Perfect.
I have no further questions of this witness. Yes, you did? Yeah.
Anyone have questions for the owner? Okay. Let's start hearing about the standards.
Okay, well, I'm going to let you know that Scott Ritchie, Steve Ritchie, excuse me, the architect, and Mark Boyer, the surveyor, are here. If you have any questions, but I won't call them unless you do, and I will call Mr. Tom Sweeney, to talk about the standards.
Sounds great.
I'm sorry. Steve Ritchie, the designer, is here, as well as,
Thank you.
the board.
A clarification that's appreciated.
Raise your hand, please. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, help you God.
I do.
Your full name, please?
Thomas, middle initial O, Sweeney, SWEENY.
Thank you, sir.
Go ahead.
And, again, so I guess you're not used to it as a planning board, but hearing zoning relief. I'm gonna ask that you accept Mr. Sweeney as an expert. He has been accepted, many times by the Providence zoning board, various courts and so forth. And, he has a report, which also includes his, resume attached to it. If we could submit that as exhibit C, please.
Yes, we have been acting as the zoning board under UDR for quite some time, so yes, we will. And we have accepted, Mr. Sweeney as an expert previously.
Thank you.
So we will do so again this evening.
So I'll ask him to spare you the usual discussion of the neighborhood and get right to the standard.
I ran by it this morning just to make sure I was on my morning run.
Mr. Chairman, at Mr. Teitz's request, I've looked at the neighborhood and the area in general, reviewed the application. And I believe the board is familiar, the commission is familiar with what the applicant is seeking here. And it's really three things that are basically based upon the existing structures. And the fourth one is due to what I think is the most appropriate way to develop this with the garage, in that it's keeping the window line and not interfering, as was shown on the plan, with the dining room windows that come off of that building. So with all of that in mind and having, inspected the neighborhood, looked at the zoning code and the city's comprehensive plan, I've come to the following conclusion. The hardship from which the applicant seeks relief is due to the unique characteristics of the subject land or structure and not to the general characteristics of the neighborhood. As, has been stated, most of this relief is primarily based upon existing 100-year-old structures. The last bit of it is to save the historic window line along the northerly facing side of the carriage house. If you move the garage to where it has been proposed, it will block those windows, and in my opinion, it's better to save the windows than to have the garage closer to the, or further away from the created property line. The application is not due to any prior actions of the applicant. Again, the buildings are where they are, the windows are where they are. We're trying to maintain and redevelop the existing improvements and maintain the existing window line. The application will not alter the general characteristics of the neighborhood. It's a mixed, single and multifamily. There's a church across the street. It's single family proposed here. It is totally in line with what is in the neighborhood and will not change the character of the neighborhood. Finally, if the application of dimensional variances are denied, it will result in more than a mere inconvenience. Again, the buildings are where they are. We're not going to move them. You're going to have negative impact on the historic nature of the carriage house. In my opinion, it would be more than mere inconvenience to deny what is applied to it.
And Mr. Sweeney, just to note for the record here, both of these resulting lots will be substantially larger than the minimum R1 required.
Yeah, the
Size.
minimum R1 requirement is 5,000 square feet. Both of these lots are in excess of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have nothing further. If you'd like to ask any questions of them?
Commissioners, do you have questions of the applicant before we hear the staff report and open up to public comment? All right, thank you very much. With that, Choyan, take it away.
Sure, thanks, Mr. Chair. And we've spoken about the unique characteristics of the property, this being a corner lot with two structures on it. And so we do feel that this uniqueness results in the conditions required for relief. And we feel that this hardship is not the result of a prior action of the applicant. This would not affect the character of the surrounding area, given that there are few changes proposed to the property and the relief request is not relative to any neighboring property. And the applicant will conform to all other dimensional requirements, except for those that they're seeking relief from. And we do feel that denial would result in more than mere inconvenience. So based on that, we recommend that you grant the requested relief as described. And moving on to the minor subdivision, we do feel that should this be approved, this would be consistent with the comprehensive plan, as this would result in areas that are consistent with the plan's description of areas intended for the single-family residential land use designation. This will comply with the zoning ordinance, subject to you granting relief. As we've said, it will not result in the need for any additional relief beyond what is required. We don't foresee a negative environmental impact. And as far as the building, as far as this being a lot free from any constraints from building, we do find that the applicant may need to seek either relief from the building board of review or remedy the portion of both houses that are in proximity to the new lot line. And street access will be provided from Wayland and Lloyd Ave. So based on that, we would recommend that you approve the minor subdivision having granted the requesting relief, and subject to the condition that the conditions that the applicant either comply with the building code or seek a variance from the building board of review, and that final plan approval be delegated to DPD staff.
Okay, thank you, Choyan. This is a public hearing, so at this point, we will open up the public comment portion of this agenda item. If you're here in the room, please raise your hand, the physical room, or if you're in our virtual room and you'd like to speak on this matter, please raise your hand, your virtual hand, of course, or press *9 if you're calling in. Seeing none, we will close the public comment portion of this agenda item. Well. This is another two vote, dimensional variances and a minor subdivision. The first one is the dimensional variances. And I see no reason why they need to comply with the setback for the new garage and have a jog as opposed to continuing that 4.4 foot setback for the new attached garage. I'll let the vice chair opine on that a little, seeing as she's our architectural
No,
expert.
I think saving the windows is well worth it.
I agree.
Then,
That front view is pretty
Yeah.
dramatic. Like I said, I ran by it this morning just to see, and yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a cool little property. I'm kind of excited. It's very big. Yes. Yeah. Having worked on historic buildings and homes. Yeah, that's a big undertaking. And that even that little carriage house, little.
the 4-bedroom home.
It's funny when I first looked at this, when the materials were posted, I'm like, oh, why wouldn't they just make that an ADU? And I'm looking at it, oh, because it's huge. You cannot make that an ADU. Yeah, so I mean, I think it makes sense to have all of the requested relief be approved. And I don't know if we were to make a recommendation to approve the dimensional variances based on the foregoing discussions, testimony this evening, and materials submitted to approve the requested relief from the side yard and rear yard setbacks for both lots. Also allowing option B with a 4.4 foot setback for the new garage. Is that enough? Someone could say so moved if they were. Second? Second. All right, we'll go around for a vote. Noel? Dave? Aye. Charlotte?
Hi.
Miguel?
Aye.
And I vote aye. The next would be the minor subdivision, and there's no malice behind the first condition of approval. We know you're working on it, just have to put it in there.
Thank you.
So if someone were so moved, they could say so moved to we should have make a motion to approve the minor subdivision based vote to approve the preliminary plan subject to the following conditions: that the applicant shall comply with the building code for the proximity of the side yard setback to the house on parcel A prior to final plan approval, and that number 2, the final plan approval shall be delegated to DPD staff.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, but that was the one point in that condition, that it would be either comply with the building code or obtain a variance from the Building Code Board of Appeal.
Yes.
I wouldn't want the building office to read it literally that we had to comply.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So
The subject to the following conditions: that the applicant shall comply with the building code for the proximity of the side yard setback or obtain relief from the building code of review for the house on parcel A prior to final plan approval.
Thank you. Parcel B.
Parcel B. Okay.
Thank you.
And then final plan approval shall be delegated to DPD staff.
So move.
We have a second?
Second.
Miguel seconds. We go around. Noel?
Aye.
Dave? Aye. Charlotte?
Hi.
Miguel?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
Thank you very much.
Best of luck. Extra consultants are sometimes like umbrellas. If you don't bring them, you'll need them. We're gonna take a minute while the stenographers change. Maybe we'll take a 2-minute break. And it is 7:01. We'll come back at 7:03, 7:04. Let's roll right into agenda item number 6. It's a minor we're calling the City Plan Commission back to order at 7:04. Minor subdivision unified development plan review again. This is a public hearing for case number 24-047 UDR at 35 Meader Street.
Sure, thanks, Mr. Chair. And this is a request to subdivide a lot that measures approximately 9,600 square feet into 2 lots of approximately 4,800 square feet each. Now, the applicant in subdividing the lot is requesting relief from the minimum lot size, which is 5,000 square feet for a new lot in the zone, as well as from the rear setback requirement, which is 30 feet, but only 14 will be provided. So the applicant's here and they can tell us more about their request for relief.
Hello, good evening, members of the commission. I am attorney Jake D'Amico appearing on behalf of the applicant this evening. The applicant is here with me. If you have any questions for him, we can certainly address them to the best of our ability. As staff said, we're here to seek relief for proposed subdivision of the property, which involves dividing that 9,600 square foot lot into 2 4,800 square foot lots. And there is some dimensional relief needed for the lot area as well as the rear setback. I can jump right into the standards. We do have a plan submitted by Peter Casali, but as the previous couple of applicants stated, he's not here today. I only have 1 copy. I know that's a problem. I can just kind of read them onto the record. Maybe that might be best.
Okay.
We'll hop right into it. So we'll address the hardship due to the unique characteristics. The hardship we are seeking relief from is due to the unique characteristics of the subject land, specifically its size and shape, which limits its ability to conform to the existing zoning requirements. The lot's unique characteristics are not reflective of the general surrounding area and are not due to any physical or economic disability of the applicant. The property's shape and dimensions create a challenge in meeting the strict 5,000 square foot requirement and the 30-foot rear setback, and this is the basis of our request. The hardship is not, it's important to note that the hardship is not a result of prior actions of the applicant. It's not an application that's driven by desire for financial gain, which I know is not a standard any longer, but rather by the independent or the intent to reasonably subdivide the property while balancing the development needs of the area. The applicant has carefully considered how to optimize the use of the land while still respecting the character of the neighborhood. A lot of the lots in the neighborhood are much smaller than the 4,800 square feet that we're proposing. There's, a lot of lots, 3,000 plus. So that goes into a little bit into preserving the character of the area and aligning with the comprehensive plan. Granting this variance will not alter the general character of the surrounding area. The proposal aligns with the development patterns in the neighborhood. Least relief necessary. The relief requested is the least relief necessary. We're only seeking minimal deviations from the requirements, a reduction of 200 square feet and lot size, and a modest rear setback reduction to 14 feet. And finally, hardship amounting to more than a mere inconvenience. In considering whether to grant a dimensional variance, the standard is that the hardship suffered by the owner, if the variance is not granted, must amount to more than a mere inconvenience. In this case, without the requested relief, the property would be underutilized and the potential to enhance the neighborhood with appropriately scaled housing would be lost. The proposed subdivision allows for the productive use of the land without compromising its compatibility with the surrounding community. I believe, in conclusion, what we found is very similar to what the staff found. It was a very favorable report. So I will pass it over to staff. And if there's any questions for the applicant after that, we'll answer them to the best of our ability.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant before we hear the staff report? All right, take it away, Joanne.
Sure, thanks, Mr. Chair. And as has been discussed, this is a unique property given that it's a corner lot and the way the house is configured. And we do also find it unique because it is 9,800 square feet, which is within the 15% of the minimum lot area required for having two lots that are 5,000 square feet each, the minimum requirement. This hardship is not the prior result of the applicant. Given the makeup of the neighborhood, we don't foresee it having a negative impact to and altering the character of the surrounding area. And we do feel that denial of this relief would amount to more than a mere inconvenience. So based on that, we recommend that you grant the request relief from the minimum lot size as well as the rear yard setback. And as far as the subdivision goes, again, this would be in conformance with the comprehensive plan as the lots created would be characteristic of those intended for the medium density residential development land use designation. Subject to you granting relief, this will comply with the zoning ordinance. They don't need any additional relief from any other dimensional requirements. We don't foresee negative environmental impact. This will be a buildable lot, and street access will be provided from Meader and Hawkins streets. So based on that, we recommend that you approve the preliminary plan subject to, based on the findings discussed, and with the condition that final plan approval be delegated to DPD staff.
Thank you, Troyan. This is a public application. It's time to open up to public comment. If there's anyone here in the audience who'd like to speak on this application, please raise your hand. And if there's anyone in our virtual room and you'd like to speak on this application, please raise your virtual hand. Or press *9 if you're calling in.
Okay, Mr. Chair, we do have someone online named Jim Priscaro. I'm going to allow him to talk.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Priscaro. Can you hear us?
You've unmuted yourself, so you can speak now.
Jim Priscaro going once, twice. I just lowered his hand. I think we'll move on to the next one. There is another one here. All right, Jim, can you hear us? You should be able to talk. Okay, it doesn't seem to be working. But we're going to try Brendan next. Brendan, you want to give us your full name?
Hi, yes, my name is Brendan Wayland, Whelan. And thank you for the opportunity to speak at this board. And unfortunately, Jim wasn't able to come off mute, but he is my neighbor. So I live at a little bit about myself. I live at 30 Spencer Street, which abuts this property. I moved to Providence 15 years ago to this neighborhood and bought this property about 8 years ago. I have to respectfully disagree with some of the opinions I've heard here. Essentially, so number one, it was read into the record that it was 9,800 square feet. I believe it's actually 9,600 square feet. That being said, though, if you divide this, if you create this subdivision, you'll have two buildings that are out of variance. To be honest, this neighborhood, a lot of investment has gone into it the last 10 years, and a lot of it's been good, but not all of it has been good. What I've noticed is that, a lot of my neighbors here are owner occupied houses. However, unfortunately, a lot of these, the neighborhood has aged and they sell their house. Real estate investors come in and they're kind of like jamming houses into everybody's backyard, which is, resulting in a loss of green space, a loss of, just ability to be outside and not feel so, on top of each other. And, in addition to that, the normal 30-foot, if you get reduced that to 14 feet, I mean, that's really like right on top of me. So, to be honest with you, I think that this is just a little bit too much. And, that's my opinion. There's a lot of people around here that Jimmy's on one side of me. I've got Connor. Mike has two houses across the street on Broadway. Charlie, Tara's on the other side, and we've got Charlie on the corner. And I knew the people who had owned that house prior, who had owned it for a very long time. I don't know if they'd be too happy about their backyard being completely consumed with, a new development. So, anyways, I think it definitely affects me directly and also the entire neighborhood, and definitely changes the characteristics. And that's about it. Thank you for hearing me out.
All right, thank you. I want to clarify a couple things before we move on to anyone else who has anything to say on this. First off is we do have a signed and stamped survey from a registered land surveyor that this is a 9,600 square foot, or sorry, yes, 9,600 square feet, and the two new lots will be 4,800 square feet apiece. Your lot and a lot of your neighbors are around 3,200 square feet. So this would be significantly larger. These two lots both would be significantly larger than what's in the surrounding areas. There are even a couple of 1,600 square foot lots surrounding you. Also, I want to clarify the discussion on the dimensional variance that was requested. That is due to the existing house that will not be changed and the new lot line that is being proposed. It is no bearing on what is going to go behind you or any change in the setbacks in this new lot. It is only for the existing house and where that new lot line is going to go. So it will not change the character of the house. They'll still need the 30-foot setback. They're not requesting anything on this new lot that's being formed as far as rear yard setback to your parcel. I just want to make this clear because it sounded like maybe you were confused on what the request was and what was being presented to us tonight. Okay, let's see. Is there someone else?
Yeah, well, let's try again to see if Jim Priscaro can speak. I'm going to allow you to talk. Jim, okay, you've unmuted. Go ahead and try and talk. Okay, it doesn't seem to be working. I'm going to try something different. I'm going to try and promote you to a panelist. Okay, Jim, try again to unmute.
Try to unmute, yeah.
Jim, can you hear us and try to unmute? Yeah, it sounds like it's not working. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jim. Technology. Sometimes it works great, sometimes it doesn't. All right, is there anyone else, a member of the public who wishes to speak on this matter? All right, seeing none, we will close the public comment portion of this agenda item. I mean, we've seen these all the time. This is pretty standard. It is surrounding size lots. It's 200 square feet less than the required, which could be administrative, save for the side yard setback or the rear yard setback that they need because there's an existing house there. That's really why they're here. We wouldn't even see this if that house wasn't there, unless someone objected to it. So nonetheless, I find this a very reasonable application. I'm for saving the house, creating a new buildable lot, and think that we should grant the dimensional variance based on the for the minimum lot size requirement and the rear yard setback based on the testimony submitted this evening and the material submitted.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Great, let's go around for a vote. Noel? Aye. Dave?
Aye.
Charlotte?
Aye.
Miguel?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Next would be the minor subdivision, which we could, I believe we should vote to approve the preliminary plan, subject to the following condition that the final plan approval be delegated to DPD staff. Do we have a second? Second. We'll go around for a vote. Noel? Aye. Dave? Aye. Charlotte?
Aye.
Miguel?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Best of luck. With that, that was the last agenda item of the evening. I will take a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second? Second. Thank you.